Okay, children, today we'll be discussing a lighter topic compared to yesterday and day before yesterday. It's about what we had touched upon yesterday a little bit, that why some inflation is good for an economy. This is the seventh masterclass of the series, so let's get started. Before we understand why some inflation is good, we need to understand how the inflation targeting works. In the US and other developed economies, the inflation target is 2%, which means an average price rise of 2% from the base year is considered good for the economy and it should be there. But in India, the same target is 4% plus or minus 2%. Now what does it mean? That inflation from 2% to 6% is good for the economy of India. But the inflation should be near about to 4% ideally. Now, why is it that developed economies have a lower inflation target than India has? Because India is a developing economy. Our demand, our effective demand, hasn't reached its full potential. So there is room for the demand to increase. But in developed economies, the effective demand has almost stagnated. But since the salaries and money in the hands of people is increasing, so the 2% targeting is done. So let's move forward to how some amount of inflation helps an economy gain confidence. Now, as we saw in the COVID times, that demand of all products took a serious dip as people didn't have money during those times. But since the supply also took a dip, the producers and the consumers didn't see a lot of inflation. But as COVID was nearing its end, the demand rose up very quickly as people started earning money and having money in their hands. But the supply didn't match up, so the inflation started rising, which gave a confidence to the economy or to the government that the demand is there. So the supply has to be increased in order to meet the demand. Now, what we saw in this example was the demand pull inflation, that the demand started rising for a product, which meant the people had money, more and more money in their hands. But cost push inflation means when the factors of production starts increasing, that when land, labor, capital, which basically means loan, and entrepreneurship start taking the precedence. So the input, that is the factors of production, start getting more and more expensive. So the output has to be more more and more expensive, which gives rise to the inflation. So moving further, now as we have understood what inflation is, there are various other concepts like deflation, disinflation, and stagflation. Deflation means there is a negative fall in the inflation, that is the prices are actually decreasing, that is minus 7% this deflation, minus 6% deflation. This is very bad for the economy because it suggests that people don't have money. Then comes disinflation, which means that the average price rise is not as much as it was before. Which means if, for example, the average price rise was 6% in the previous quarter, Q1, but in Q2, the average price rise was 4%, that is minus 2% of decrease in the inflation. So the average prices will not fall, but they will increase at an lower rate than before. Now stagflation is a very interesting concept that happened in Japan, and it is still happening there, that the average prices are increasing, but the unemployment rate is also increasing. Now, this unemployment rate, when it is down, it means that people have money. When it is unemployment rate is down, but when the unemployment rate is high, it suggests that people don't have money. But how it can be possible that the unemployment rate is high but the prices are also going up? It defies all laws of economics. So we'll be discussing that in tomorrow's lecture. So so stay tuned for more and subscribe.